I begged my husband for a baby for 10 years. He said he wasn't ready. He had a 14-year-old the whole time. He just didn't want children with me. Posted in r/true off my chest. I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of a coffee shop, and I don't know where else to go. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely type this. I found something yesterday that has destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the man I've loved for 18 years. I need to write this down. I need someone to tell me I'm not losing my mind. My husband and I have been married for 18 years. We met when I was 23 and he was 28, both of us young professionals building our careers. He worked in regional sales, which meant frequent travel, 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes more. I was in marketing, climbing my way up. We fell in love quickly, married within 2 years, and built what I thought was a solid, loving partnership. We never had children. Not for lack of wanting on my part. God, I wanted children so desperately. From the moment we married, I dreamed of becoming a mother. I imagined our house filled with laughter, bedtime stories, first steps, scraped knees I would bandage with cartoon band-aids. I wanted it all. But my husband always had reasons why the timing wasn't right. Let's wait until we're more financially stable, he'd say in our late 20s. Let's wait until I get this promotion, he'd say in our early 30s. I'm just not ready yet, he'd say when I turned 35 and started feeling the biological clock everyone warns you about. Maybe kids just aren't in the cards for us, he finally said when I turned 38, my hope dimming with each passing year. I cried. I begged. I suggested fertility treatments when we started trying casually and nothing happened. But treatments were expensive, he said. We couldn't afford them. We were already stretched thin with the mortgage, his car payment, his business expenses. So I grieved the children I would never have. I made peace with it, or tried to. I told myself that our marriage was enough, that some couples don't have children and still live fulfilling lives. I threw myself into my career, into our relationship, into being the best wife I could be. 18 years. I gave him 18 years of my life. And yesterday, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. He'd come home from a business trip late Sunday night, exhausted as always. He dropped his jacket on the back of the kitchen chair instead of hanging it up in the closet like he usually does. Monday morning, I picked it up to move it, and a folded receipt fell out. I almost threw it away without looking. Almost. But something made me unfold it. Some instinct I didn't know I had. It was from a party supply store in a city 3 hours away. The itemized list included princess-themed paper plates, pink and purple balloons, a cake topper that read, Happy 8th Birthday, fairy-themed napkins, and a piñata. We don't have children. We don't have nieces or nephews close enough for him to be shopping for their birthdays. And he'd told me he was at a sales conference that weekend. My first thought was that there must be an explanation. Maybe it was a colleague's child's party. Maybe he'd been asked to pick something up as a favor. Maybe the receipt wasn't even his. Maybe he'd picked up someone else's jacket by mistake. But even as I made these excuses, my hands were shaking. Because deep in my gut, in that place where women know things before their minds catch up, I already knew. Something was very, very wrong. Update 1. I hired a private investigator. The results destroyed me. It's been 3 weeks since I found that receipt. 3 weeks of pretending everything was normal while my insides churned with suspicion. 3 weeks of watching my husband kiss my cheek goodbye before his business trips, wondering where he was really going. I couldn't live with the not knowing. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. I found him through a referral from a divorce attorney I'd quietly consulted, just to understand my options, I told myself. The investigator was a retired police detective, professional and discreet. I handed him the receipt, gave him my husband's travel schedule, and paid his retainer with money from my personal savings account, the one my husband didn't know about. Give me 2 weeks, he said. If there's something to find, I'll find it. Yesterday, he called me into his office to deliver his report. I thought I was prepared. I'd imagined affairs, secret gambling debts, maybe even another woman. I'd steeled myself for whatever he might reveal. I was not prepared for this. My husband has another family. Not just another woman. A whole family. In a city 3 hours away, he has a wife, not legally married, but they've lived together for 15 years, which qualifies as common law marriage in that state. They have 3 children together. 3 children. The investigator slid photographs across his desk while he talked. I picked them up with numb fingers. The oldest is a girl, 14 years old. She has his eyes, those same blue eyes I fell in love with 2 decades ago. In the photos, she's in a soccer uniform, ponytail swinging, laughing at something off camera. My husband, the man I thought didn't want children, stands on the sidelines, cheering her on. The middle child is a boy, 11. He looks so much like my husband it's startling. There are photos of them at what looks like a baseball game, my husband's arm around the boy's shoulders, both of them grinning. The youngest is another girl, 8 years old. Her birthday party, the one from the receipt, is documented in the investigator's report. Pink princess dress, fairy wings, a massive smile as she blew out the candles on her cake. My husband is in several of the photos, helping her open presents, picking her up and spinning her around. He's smiling in every picture. Really smiling. The kind of smile I've only seen in glimpses over the years. He visits them an average of 3 times per week, the investigator told me, his voice professionally detached. What he tells you are business trips are actually visits to this other home. He's established an entire life there, attends the children's school events, coaches Little League, is active in their community. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. I think I made some kind of sound, a moan, maybe, or a sob. The investigator pushed a box of tissues toward me, said something about taking my time. I begged him for a baby for 10 years. He said he wasn't ready. He had a 14-year-old the whole time. He just didn't want a child with me. That 14-year-old girl was conceived while we were married. While I was dreaming of becoming a mother, he was already a father. While I was crying about negative pregnancy tests, his other woman was pregnant with their first child. He didn't want children with me. That's the only explanation. He wanted a family, just not with me. I wasn't good enough to be the mother of his children. That's why he stalled, made excuses, refused fertility treatments. He already had what he wanted somewhere else. I sat in that investigator's office and wept like I've never wept in my life. Update 2. The financial reality is even worse than I imagined. After the initial shock wore off, or maybe while I was still in shock, I can't really tell anymore, I started digging into our finances. The investigator had given me a starting point. He'd found evidence that my husband had been financially supporting both households for years. I'd always handled our household budget, or so I thought. My husband deposited his paychecks into our joint account, and I paid the bills. But I realized I had no actual visibility into how much he earned. His pay stubs came electronically, and he'd always handled that. I just saw what showed up in our account. I hired a forensic accountant. What she found made me sick. 4 years, my husband has been diverting approximately 40% of his actual income to the other family. He has a separate bank account I never knew about, and from there he pays a mortgage on a 4-bedroom house, bigger than our 3-bedroom townhome, private school tuition for all 3 children, a car payment for the other woman's SUV, the utilities, groceries, the children's extracurricular activities. We couldn't afford the bigger house. We couldn't afford nice vacations. We couldn't afford fertility treatments. Now I know where all the money was going. All those years. All those conversations. We really need to tighten our belts this year. Maybe next year we can talk about that vacation to Europe. Fertility treatments are so expensive, and there's no guarantee they'd even work. Is it really worth it? The house I wanted, the one we looked at 8 years ago with the big backyard and the room that could have been a nursery, he said we couldn't afford the down payment. Meanwhile, he was paying a mortgage for another family. A family he actually wanted. The fertility clinic consultation I'd scheduled 5 years ago, he talked me out of going, said we should save the money for more practical things. Meanwhile, he was paying private school tuition for children he'd never told me existed. The trip to Italy I'd been dreaming about for our 15-year anniversary. He said maybe we could do a long weekend in a nearby city instead, since funds were tight. I found receipts showing he took the other woman to Disneyland with the kids that same year. I have spent my entire marriage being financially limited because my husband was funding a secret life. The forensic accountant estimated that over 15 years, approximately $600,000 has gone to the other family. $600,000 that was marital assets. Money that was partially mine. Money that could have given me the life I actually wanted. I don't know how to process this. I feel robbed in every possible way, robbed of money, robbed of choices, robbed of the family I desperately wanted. And the thing that haunts me most? He looked me in the eye while doing it. Every time he said, "We can't afford it," he knew exactly where the money was going. He chose them over me, again and again and again, and made me think I was the priority when I was actually the afterthought. Update 3. I met the other woman. We are both victims. After weeks of investigation and financial discovery, I knew I had a choice to make. I could confront my husband directly. Or I could reach out to the other woman first. I chose her. The investigator had given me her name and address. I spent days crafting a letter, writing and rewriting, trying to find the right words. How do you tell a woman that her husband, the father of her children, is actually married to someone else? How do you shatter someone's world while making clear that you're not the enemy? In the end, I kept it simple. I wrote that I was his legal wife of 18 years, that I'd recently discovered his double life, and that I wanted to meet with her to share information. I included a few details only a wife would know: our wedding date, his parents' names, where he grew up, so she'd know I wasn't some random person making accusations. I mailed the letter and waited. She called me 3 days later. Her voice was shaking so badly she could barely get the words out. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our cities, neutral ground for two women whose lives had just imploded. I spotted her immediately. She looked exactly like her photos, but somehow smaller. Diminished. Like the weight of this revelation was physically pressing her down. We sat across from each other, two strangers connected by the worst kind of bond. "I thought I was the secret," she finally said. "All these years, I thought I was the other woman. I knew he was away a lot for work, but he said it was just his job. He said he'd never been married before. He said," her voice broke, "he said he wanted to marry me properly someday, once his career was more stable. His other wife thought she was the secret. I thought I was the only one. We were both wrong. We were both victims." She told me their story. They met 16 years ago at a conference, one of his business trips. She was a single woman in her mid-20s, and he swept her off her feet. Within a year, she was pregnant. He set her up in a house, said they'd be a real family. She believed him. For 15 years, she's believed him. She showed me photos of their life together, birthday parties, holidays, vacations. In every picture, he looks like a devoted father and partner. Because, I realized with another wave of nausea, he wasn't faking it with them. He genuinely loved being a father, loved that life. He just didn't want it with me. "He always said he loved us differently," she whispered, echoing words he'd apparently said to both of us in various forms. Like that was supposed to mean something. Like love comes in different flavors and you just pick which one you're in the mood for. He said he loved us differently. Like we were options on a menu. Like our lives were items he could order based on his mood. We talked for 4 hours. We compared timelines, stories, lies. The picture that emerged was staggering in its calculated cruelty. When she had their first child, he told her his work travel would increase because he'd been promoted. The same week, he told me he'd gotten a bigger territory that required more time on the road. When I had surgery 3 years ago and needed him home for recovery, he told her his mother was sick and he had to travel to help her. His mother has been dead for 7 years. When she gave birth to their youngest, he told me he had a week-long training seminar he couldn't miss. He was in the delivery room, cutting the umbilical cord. The logistics alone are breathtaking. The calendars he must have maintained, the lies he had to track, the stories he had to keep straight. He lived this double life for 15 years, and neither of us suspected. At the end of our meeting, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she said. "About the children. I know you wanted them. I didn't know. If I had known he had a wife, I never would have." I took her hand. "You're not the one who should be sorry. You didn't do this. He did. He lied to both of us." We exchanged phone numbers and promised to stay in touch. Two women who should be enemies, united by their betrayal. As we walked to our cars, I realized something that made my chest ache. I liked her. In different circumstances, we might have been friends. But instead, we're two casualties of the same man's deception. Update 4. I confronted him. His reaction told me everything I needed to know. Last night, I told my husband we needed to talk. He'd just come home from a business trip, actually a long weekend with his other family, I now knew. He looked tired, which I used to find endearing. Now I understood that exhaustion. It's tiring to maintain two separate lives. I'd prepared for this moment for weeks. I'd moved my important documents to a safe deposit box. I'd consulted with a divorce attorney at length and understood my options. I'd transferred half of our savings into an account in my name only, perfectly legal, according to my lawyer, given that it's marital property. I was as ready as I'd ever be. I sat him down at the kitchen table and placed the investigator's folder in front of him. His photographs, his other family, the financial records. Everything. His face went through a fascinating series of expressions. First confusion, then recognition, then, just for a moment, something like fear. But that faded quickly, replaced by something I can only describe as resignation. "How long have you known?" was the first thing he asked. Not, "I can explain." Not, I'm so sorry. Not any of the things a remorseful person might say. Just a practical question about the timeline of his exposure. Long enough, I said. Long enough to know everything. He was quiet for a long moment. I waited. I never meant for this to happen, he finally said. It got away from me. One thing led to another, and then there were kids, and I couldn't just abandon them. But you could abandon me? The words came out more calmly than I felt. You could look me in the face for 15 years while raising a family with someone else? You could deny me children while you were changing diapers and going to school plays. It's not that simple. It seems pretty simple to me. I wanted a baby. I begged you for a baby. You said you didn't want kids. You had 3 of them. He rubbed his face with his hands, a gesture I used to find endearing. I love you, he said. That was never a lie. I love you. And her. Do you love her too? Yes. No hesitation. I love you both. Just differently. There it was. The excuse he'd apparently been using to justify this to himself for nearly 2 decades. You love us differently, I repeated. That's your explanation? You love us differently. You wouldn't understand. Then help me understand. Help me understand how you could lie to me every single day for 15 years. Help me understand how you could let me grieve the children I'd never have while you were coaching Little League. Help me understand how you could tell me we couldn't afford things while you were paying for a 4-bedroom house and private school tuition. Help me understand any of it. He had no answer. Or rather, he had no answer that would make sense to someone who hadn't compartmentalized their entire life the way he had. I never wanted to hurt you, he finally said. I laughed. I actually laughed. You never wanted to hurt me? You've destroyed me. You took 18 years of my life. You took my 30s, my fertility, my trust. You took everything from me. 18 years. I gave him 18 years of my life. My entire 30s. My fertility. My trust. He gave me lies and leftovers. He tried to take my hand. I pulled away like his touch was fire. We can work through this, he said. People work through affairs. We can go to counseling. This isn't an affair. My voice was ice. You don't have 3 children with an affair. You don't maintain a common-law marriage with an affair. You built an entire parallel life. You chose, every single day for 15 years, to be a father to those children and not to any children with me. That's not something you work through. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his eyes. The mask dropped, just for a moment. You wouldn't have been happy with children anyway, he said quietly. You were never maternal. I could tell. I felt like he'd stabbed me. I begged you, I whispered. For 10 years, I begged you. I cried myself to sleep wanting a baby. How dare you tell me I wouldn't have been happy? I knew, he said. I knew what you needed better than you did. You needed a partner. She needed a father for her children. You both needed different things from me, and I tried to give you both what you needed. The audacity of it. The absolute gall, to sit there and tell me he'd made these decisions for my benefit. That he'd denied me motherhood because he knew what I needed better than I did. Get out, I said. Get out of this house tonight. He tried to argue. He tried to negotiate. He brought up the mortgage, our finances, where he would even go. Go to her, I said. Go to the family you actually wanted. You don't have one here anymore. He left an hour later with a suitcase. I changed the locks that night. Update 5. The aftermath. A bitter victory. It's been 3 months since I threw him out. 3 months of lawyers, paperwork, discoveries, and the painful process of dismantling an 18-year marriage. The divorce is proceeding. My attorney is excellent, and the evidence of his financial deception is overwhelming. Under the laws in my state, I'm entitled to half of all marital assets, including the money he diverted to the other family over the years. The forensic accountant's documentation has been invaluable. He's fighting it, of course. He hired his own lawyer, tried to claim that the money he sent to his other family was business expenses or gifts to relatives. But the paper trail is clear, and my attorney has assured me that no judge will look favorably on a man who defrauded his wife for 15 years to support a secret family. I'll likely end up with the house, my retirement accounts, and a significant portion of his future earnings. From a purely financial standpoint, I'm going to be fine. The other woman is pursuing her own legal action. In her state, common law marriage is recognized, which complicates things. She has rights too, and he's now in the impossible position of having obligations to two households he can no longer afford to maintain separately. She's seeking child support and fair division of any assets she can claim. We talk regularly now, she and I. 2 or 3 times a week, checking in on each other, comparing notes on the legal proceedings, sometimes just venting about the man who ruined both our lives. It's the strangest friendship I've ever had, but it's also one of the most genuine. She's a good woman. A good mother. Her children, his children, are innocent victims in all of this. They didn't ask to be born into a lie. The 14-year-old understands what happened now, and from what the other woman tells me, she's furious at her father. The younger two are confused and hurt. They don't understand why daddy doesn't come around as much anymore, why mommy cries at night. I find myself aching for these children I've never met. They're part of my story now, whether I want them to be or not. Their existence represents everything that was stolen from me, but they themselves are just kids whose father betrayed everyone who loved him. Some nights, I lie awake and do the math. When the oldest was born, I was 32. Still young. Still fertile. Still full of hope that next year, we'd be ready for a baby. If I had known then, if I had caught him then, I would have had time. Time to leave, to heal, to find someone else, to have the family I wanted. But I didn't know. And now I'm 42. My doctor was honest with me when I asked. Yes, some women have children at my age. But fertility declines sharply in the late 30s and early 40s. After years without trying, with no partner, with the emotional trauma I'm processing, the odds are not in my favor. IVF might be possible but would be expensive and uncertain. The children I wanted, the children I dreamed about for 15 years, they were always a fantasy. But I didn't know they were impossible until now. Until it was too late. He took that from me. The choice. The chance. The possibility. I won this divorce. I'll get the money, the house, the settlement. Everyone will say I came out on top. But I'm 42 years old, alone, and childless. I spent my best years, my fertile years, my hopeful years, on a man who was building a family with someone else. I gave him my youth, my love, my trust, my body, my future. And he was never really mine at all. She has 3 children. Whatever else happens, whatever financial struggle she faces, she has 3 children she loves and who love her. That's something no court can give me, no settlement can replace. Last week, I was cleaning out his home office, the last room I hadn't touched, and I found a box of photographs in his desk drawer. Pictures of his other family over the years. First day of school photos. Holiday cards. Soccer games and dance recitals and birthday parties. In one photo, he's holding the oldest when she was just a newborn. The look on his face, I'd never seen him look at me that way. Pure joy. Pure love. The look of a man whose deepest wish had just come true. I sat on the floor of that office and sobbed for an hour. He wanted children. He wanted to be a father. He just didn't want those things with me. That's the truth I have to live with now. It wasn't about timing or money or readiness. He simply looked at me and decided I wasn't the one he wanted to build that life with. But he wanted my companionship, my support, my income, my domestic partnership. So he kept me around as an option while building his real life elsewhere. 18 years of my life. Leftovers. That's what I was. I don't know how to end this story because it doesn't feel like there's an ending. The divorce will finalize in a few months. I'll have money and a house and a new chapter ahead of me. But I'll also have the knowledge that I spent my prime years being deceived. That the children I desperately wanted were denied to me by a man who was raising 3 of his own. That every tender moment, every "I love you," every plan for our future was given by someone who had already built a future somewhere else. The other woman and I talk about what comes next. She's younger than me, just turned 40, and has her children to focus on. She'll rebuild. She has reason to. I'm rebuilding too, in my own way. Therapy helps. So does the anger, honestly. It's cleaner than the grief. Some days I wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that receipt. If I'd gone on believing for another 5 years, 10 years, until he finally slipped up in some other way, or never at all. Would ignorance have been better? Would the life I thought I had been enough? I don't think so. The life I thought I had wasn't real. It was a carefully constructed illusion, and I was never actually living it. I was living in a story someone else had written for me, playing a role I didn't know I was playing. At least now I'm writing my own story. At least now, whatever comes next is mine. But God, I wish I'd found that receipt 18 years ago. Before he took everything from me. Before he had the chance to steal my future while smiling to my face. He says he loved us both. Maybe he did, in whatever broken way he's capable of love. But love doesn't lie for 18 years. Love doesn't build secret families. Love doesn't steal someone's fertility and dreams and youth and call it different. That wasn't love. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure I want to know. All I know is that I'm 42 years old, starting over, and mourning children who never existed. And somewhere in another city, 3 kids are going to grow up knowing their father lied to everyone he claimed to love, including them. We're all casualties of the same man's deception. The only difference is that they have each other, and she has them, and I have an empty house and a settlement check and the rest of my life to figure out who I am when I'm not someone's secret second choice. I'll survive. I know I will. Women survive far worse than this. But I'll never get back what he took. And that's the bitter truth I have to carry now, along with everything else. Final note, if you're reading this and something feels off in your relationship, trust that feeling. I wish I had trusted mine years ago. I wish I'd asked more questions, demanded more transparency, refused to accept the excuses that seemed so reasonable at the time. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Don't be me. Don't give 18 years to someone who's only giving you part-time attention. Don't let someone else's lies become your reality. I'm living proof of what happens when you do. Here's what I learned at 42. You can spend 18 years with someone and never know them at all. I begged him for a baby for 10 years. He said he wasn't ready. He had a 14-year-old the whole time. He just didn't want a child with me. A receipt fell out of his jacket. Princess-themed plates. Pink balloons. Happy 8th birthday, cake topper. We don't have children. He said he never wanted kids. I hired a private investigator. What he found destroyed me. My husband has another family. A wife of 15 years. 3 children, 14, 11, and 8. He visits them every business trip. He coaches their little league. He attends their school plays. He's been a father this whole time. We couldn't afford the bigger house. We couldn't afford nice vacations. We couldn't afford fertility treatments. Now I know where all the money was going. $600,000 over 15 years. To a family he actually wanted. His other wife thought she was the secret. I thought I was the only one. We were both wrong. We were both victims. We met at a coffee shop. 2 strangers connected by the worst kind of bond. We compared timelines, stories, lies. The picture that emerged was staggering in its calculated cruelty. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He said he loved us differently. Like we were options on a menu. Like our lives were items he could order based on his mood. Then he said the cruelest thing, you wouldn't have been happy with children anyway. You were never maternal. I begged him. For 10 years, I cried myself to sleep wanting a baby. And he told me he knew what I needed better than I did. 18 years. I gave him 18 years of my life. My entire 30s. My fertility. My trust. He gave me lies and leftovers. I found a photo of him holding his oldest daughter as a newborn. The look on his face, pure joy. He never looked at me that way. He wanted children. He wanted to be a father. He just didn't want those things with me. The divorce is proceeding. I'll get the house, the settlement, half of everything. I won. But I'm 42 years old, alone, and childless. I spent my fertile years on a man who was building a family with someone else. She has 3 children. Whatever struggles she faces, she has them. No settlement can replace that. He didn't just steal money. He stole my 30s. My fertility window. My chance at motherhood. He stole choices I didn't even know I was losing. I'll survive. Women survive far worse. But if something feels off in your relationship, trust that feeling. Don't give 18 years to someone who's only giving you part-time attention. Don't be me.